So do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is really exciting because this is an example of our future that we're heading toward, in which people are going to be able to eventually wear really high resolution, beautiful digital fashion with the help of augmented reality. And so this is a good starting point. Sort of follow up in part 2 of our conversation with Emma from Digitalax. So Emma, do you want to explain a little bit about who made this and the people involved?
Sure. So the main kind of entity involved with this is Artifact, and they are really cool, like native crypto NFT gaming brand, I would say. But they focus purely on making like cosmetic NFTs, and it leaks a bit into the fashion side. This was actually their first like proper digital fashion drop. Before that, they were focused more on sneakers and other kind of things in that space. So this was called the Meta Jacket, and it's a really cool concept. It's really this, I guess, representation, like what you mentioned, of the future of digital fashion and the cool, crazy kind of concepts and ideas that you can hash together to really bring that to life. So the Meta Jacket was not just Artifact, and really the reason where Digitalax came into the drop, and our kind of vision throughout this as well, was this whole idea of the modding side of the digital fashion pieces themselves. And this is like a bigger vision that we have within our ecosystem, which is all about how do you enable other creators and designers to contribute to these digital fashion pieces along the supply chain. And those kind of like different textures and materials that you see like flashing on the Meta Jacket, this was all done by different artists, young and upcoming crypto artists in this space, who could contribute their textures and like reskin the jacket itself. So that's what's live on the Digitalax marketplace at the moment for auction, is these Meta Jacket pieces that have been reskinned by different artists, and then the kind of broader model developed by Artifact itself.
Great. So this is really exciting, but what also excites me about what Emma's working on is all the intersections with adjacent technologies. We spoke to Emma last week. We got some good feedback. People wanted to hear more about WebXR and WebVR, and I thought, well, let's talk about WebAR, since we did talk about WebVR a little bit last week. We talked about VR a bit last week. It's something a lot of people want to hear about, and a big part of bringing digital fashion to AR would be to talk about 3D networks, deep learning neural networks. So we've got WebAR, we've got the device API. This is there's like a universal standard. Anyone can sort of code these applications. The same applications that were mentioned in the first article. We're talking about A-Frame and 3JS and Babylon and Play Canvas. All of those WebVR, WebXR applications will work to create AR apps. Digitalax is a great example of the companies that are bringing that are helping to auction NFT art in part. This is one small thing that Emma's doing out of a lot of things that Emma's doing. And her auctions are places where people can bring this really high resolution, beautiful fashion designer clothing that is design. It's digital art basically, and have it registered on the blockchain with NFT, with ERC 721 and 1155, and then so that way when you buy, the thing is, when you buy this, that you have a unique, you have something unique. You have something that has a unique number stored on the blockchain. And the final sort of component that I wanted to mention is that we've got a lot of sensors being added to all of our AR/VR headsets and our phones. And so I want to say that so Emma mentioned the CryptoKitties in the last video last time, and so I looked up the history. And you can check out OpenSea has this great look up the NFT, look up the non-fungible token Bible, on your search engine, and you'll find this resource. And so it's really interesting that that goes back to, I guess it's dated from 2017 to today, and this great history of allowing NFTs to bring us unique art. On this slide, I want to say that something about the meta jackets that we saw in the video at the beginning. They were auctioned. They were auctioned with Digitalax, but also with Super Rare, two different companies. But the artistic editions artistic edition skins that were auctioned on Digitalax were unique. They were not had by any other auction provider. And so what surprised me, it is surprising to see someone wearing something this fancy with an augmented reality technology. But I guess what I heard is that this was actually post-production, so it wasn't AR yet. And I just want to mention that it was modeled by Charlene, and who's known for cosplay modeling. And the future digital economy will combine things like NFT digital fashion with WebAR, with face and body tracking, and an amazing array of body sensors. So that we can really wear the digital fashion that we purchase. And let's see if I can, so it says that, so I guess let me see if I can stop the share for a second and just check to see, oh, there's, okay, look, there they are. Okay, so we're gonna invite 2 more people to join us now. So hello.
Hi, am I too late? I was like confused. I went to the Google Meet thing and then I couldn't get in that like said Google Meet and I didn't read down further.
You are right on time. Welcome Anina, and welcome to Cecile Tamura also. So just to cover real briefly, we're talking about Digitalax. The new, we have these new these, what do you call it, these new meta jackets that they're auctioned, unique skins auctioned on Digitalax. And the meta jackets were a combination of digital fashion and an example of how digital fashion combined with NFT will be maybe this was a little bit forward looking, because the model who wore this, she was able to wear it because of post-production, but the future will be that anyone who buys digital fashion will be able to use WebAR or augmented reality to wear digital fashion automatically in real time. And part of what makes that possible is going to be more advanced face and body tracking. And a good point to make is that a lot of our devices, from AR/VR headsets to just our phones, are starting to come with an amazing array of new sensors that are built to sort of track our bodies and digitize our world into cinematic objects, so that we can do things like this. And one of those technologies that people, fashion designers might like to learn about is called MediaPipe. It's an example of an application made with a deep learning neural network. It's actually made by Google. It's backed by the library behind it is TensorFlow, and what it does is it tracks faces, hands, body poses, and objects. It does all of that at the same time. It's a new, they call it MediaPipe Holistic. It used to be just a short time ago, you could only do like one of those things. You could only do like faces or hands or body poses or objects, but now we just do it all. And in the near future, it's going to do semantic segmentation, and that means real-time 3D construction of reality. It runs from a web browser, and it works with WebXR. And WebXR is exciting because WebXR is, people have heard of 3JS and A-Frame and all the different, we have WebGL and all the different technologies you can use to create AR and VR applications on the web. Well, those same applications will allow developers to interface with the fashion tech community, the fashion designer community, the digital fashion designer community, to bring those 3D dresses and 3D assets into, am I sharing my screen? Let me make sure I'm sharing it. So let's go ahead and hit the share button.
I see it over your shoulder.
You see it over my shoulder, but let's see. Okay. So let me go ahead and do the screen sharing again. So real quickly, this is the slide with the meta jacket. This is the media pipe that people want to know about, media pipe holistic. You can just look that up. And there'll be an article that I'll share afterwards at svgn.io that has basically all these slides in it, so people can get the slides from there. And so Emma, who's also with us, has worked with artists and fashion designers to create, one of the things she's done is create digital fashion auctions with NFT. And her company is helping to build the road, the digital road that will allow us to wear digital fashion in augmented reality and virtual reality. And that comes about because she's creating a file format called Dash, which is sort of like a way to solve the interoperability of 3D objects so that they can be easily transferred from any 3D program into any other 3D program, but in a specific way that represents how they're supposed to look with opinionated logic and Fourier transforms. So it's really fancy, interesting technology. And so this slide, yeah, sort of covers that. You know, we've got WebXR, which is 3DS, and we've got MediaPipe, which is AI, and we've got digital fashion, and all three of these things are coming together. They're integrating, which is sort of like what sort of brings me a little bit to the conversation is wanting to cover the intersection of in part wanting to cover the intersection of all of these different topics. And so you know, a great course that I've been doing, I was telling Emma before the call started that you know, I've been studying this 3GS course, and it's just recently by Bruno Simon, and let's see, we've got this. So Emma, maybe you can tell us a little bit about the importance of the sort of like the developer community that you've been talking about. You've been talking about something called Pod
well, yeah. So I guess my mindset on a lot of this is, how do you, in everything that you do, how do you kind of bring a sustainable industry standards into that, or how do you start generating value for all the ecosystem participants? And a big part of where I see the industry today, you know, when you're talking about WebXR, WebAR, all of these different kind of technologies and avenues and fields, the developer ecosystem is really important, because they're the ones bringing the content forward. They're the ones kind of engaging the players or the users and the interactors. And I definitely see that in the current climate, there's huge gaps. And just the way that the broader gaming and VR industry is set up now, it's very cutthroat. It's very like sink or swim. They really don't, you know, support the developer ecosystem or care about how they can genuinely get their content into the hands of users in a way that actually satisfies them or is passionate for their creativity. So really and a bigger vision of Digitalax and myself and wanting to bring forward is, how do you actually create platforms or systems that allow the developers to engage with these technologies, but not just engage with them. How can they start really creating value from them and creating a livelihood, and do it in a way that is actually supportive and actually bring sustainability towards and to their passion. So a big part of this is looking at the future and seeing very much that the player creator ecosystems will be huge. And we really see this now with like NFT art at the moment, and how it's going absolutely crazy. How you know ecosystems like Ethereum and blockchain technology, how that can actually allow independent artists and creators to thrive, monetize on their work and their assets, create these livelihoods. So when you think about that from a gaming context, and when you're talking about, you know, like technologies and that, or like languages like 3JS and WebXR, WebVR, it's kind of a similar thing that we're doing at Digitalax, which is, how do you actually capture this and allow these developers that are, say, experimenting with these new technologies and these new platforms, how can they have a streamlined way to get this in front of users and then actually bring value back from that? And a huge part of this is looking at, well, how do you actually value digital goods or assets? How do you kind of have a native digital framework that can assess the value of, say, one content piece or experience over another? Because I think that that's a big problem at the moment. When you think about this whole content ecosystem, there's a lot of saturation in the market, and being able as a developer to have a platform that you can come on and you can display it or distribute it to users, but then also have it where there's kind of a natively digital mechanism for valuing that piece of content. So when new users come in and they see, okay, what is this? What is WebXR? How do I interact with it? there's a real clear path for them as a player, as a user, as a buyer, whatever you want to call it, to be able to engage with these player creator economies. So that's what we're doing. Cut a long story short, and to make it more clear with Pode, it's building out a independent developer ecosystem where they can have a platform to showcase their content, but in a way that actually assesses the natively digital value of that content from a player and a user's perspective. So it's kind of really building up a more robust ecosystem where there's a proper search engine to this kind of oversaturation problem that we're seeing in the market today.
So speaking of the developer ecosystem, I was remembering last week that Cecile mentioned that there's been a long history of basically the player creator system economy in Japan. I found this really great slide. Actually, I created this slide about Crypto Heroes. This is an RPG based in Japan that uses NFTs to track heroes and track items. So I wanted to give Cecile a chance to sort of talk a little bit more about sort of her reflections since then and about what Emma's saying. Cecile, welcome.
Yeah. What you're showing now is about NFT, but the player creator economy in Japan, which has started, came from even 3D Times when they had this Gaia platform, wherein it's like a social platform, but you tend to buy, clothes there and costumes and like weapons or other tokens that you need to do. So it has lasted for many years, and in fact, it was made. There was a study made by MIT about that, and it had its ups and downs, but it went really high into multi-million-dollar industry. So well, anyway, the platforms that they have about the player creator economy has been extended so far. Like there's Gacha um, and also other player creator economies evolving on 2D players, or even evolving on YouTubers now, the virtual YouTubers. So maybe a lot of people do not really understand about this, because you see a lot of new industries in Japan has not been exposed so much, and later you will find out that they're doing a lot of sales, but no, not so many people in the world knows about that. Yeah, so
so to sort of talk about how if we can see on this slide real quick, we've got the let me see, am I sharing this? Let's see. Let me go back to the share screen, and here we go. So on this slide, you can see that there is a growing connection between crypto, like game worlds like Crypto Voxels, which imports NFTs and NFT art, and potentially, we have the brain-computer interface devices. So the Valve and OpenBCI and Toby means your brainwaves and your eyes may be used with NFT and WebXR apps like Crypto Voxels. And so the questions are that the computer might be able to answer is, what art are you looking at? What emotion or intention is the computer predicting? And maybe it's creating a log of what digital fashion spoke to you. And so I wanted to say, we've got these Apple patents that use sensors to track everything. We mentioned the AI to do body tracking, the digital fashion, which would be an AR, but using that digital fashion to, like, hey, that could be part of an AR role-playing game where you have heroes and you could be a hero in a game. And then, briefly, I wanted to mention that, we've got these amazing sort of new WebAR technologies like Eighth Wall over here. And they're all converging. All this technology is converging with, you're going to have basically Wi-Fi can detect emotion. This is a new paper that came out called Deep Learning Framework for Subject Independent Emotion. I wanted to just, before I bring in Anina, I wanted to sort of talk about basically, there was this great Yuval Noah Harari and Mark Zuckerberg had this great conversation in April of 2019 that was broadcast live onto YouTube and Facebook. And the quote I love is that, Yuval says, "How do I trust that my amygdala is not a Russian agent now?" Sort of like, he was worried that the sort of convergence of brain-computer interfaces and Facebook and all of our technologies will lead to this sort of like, how will he be able to trust his mind? And sort of so going back to this slide, but also to this slide is what I'm bringing up is the topics of humanitarianism, climate change, democracy, and fairness in the context of digital fashion, which is so Digital AX recently created a partnership with the Human Rights Foundation. So I went on to Clubhouse, and I was talking to one of the digital fashion groups that Anina hosts. So Anina is she's also known just reading from the Wikipedia article, but she's also known by the pseudonym Nina.net. She's an American-born German international fashion model, a speaker, a blogger, a fashion technology innovator. I love this description. Listed as number 7 in the top 100 women in wearable and consumer tech. She's the CEO and founder of the 360 Fashion Network. And she when I told her about this so we talked, and here she is. So Anina, would you sort of share your perspective on everything we've discussed so far?
Yeah, it might help to just maybe give a little bit background of my association or experience with augmented reality, virtual reality, and then hardware. So in 2010, I pioneered fashion augmented reality together with HP and Erasma. And I brought those experiences, my ideas of those experiences, into these big exhibitions in China where 110,000 people attended. So I got a really good view on what people would do with this technology at a very early age. Now, of course, back then you needed a mobile application, but it also was more powerful than I would say the current state of WebAR right now, because obviously using the engine of the phone and being a native app gives you a lot of power, right? But it was very interesting, the response from the fashion industry when I would show, like, I had a 9-meter wall with the history of Chinese fashion, and people could take this iPad and go through and watch all sorts of things. I had myself digitized, and I worked with the gaming company to make a 3D version of myself, which would stand in the middle, virtually stand in the middle of the floor and be posing. And I created this experience where I had these huge, I don't know, I was into 9 meters, it was a big space. So 9-meter wall with a red carpet experience, where if you stood in front of the wall was the trigger, and then you could pose with the virtual me. And it was so interesting. And then we take picture, and it was so interesting how the people, I mean, they were like crushing me from behind while I was trying to take the photo, to see, themselves, and they would play with the avatar, and they would, put their arm around her and joke with her and interact with her. And we had a big screen so they could see what they were doing. And they really treated the me or the her like a real person, and then we put those photos up on on our social media, and they would just go flying all over the internet. So it was a very interesting experiment at a very early age to see you know, what people would do with all of this augmentation. And then we, of course, we had the glasses kiosk where you could stand in front, and you can see many of these things on our YouTube station, 360 Fashion TV. The top guy in the Chinese fashion central government trying on glasses and looking cool and stuff. So, and so my concept there was with AR and fashion was more in the retail environment, that we would no longer have a store that was a physical place where we put clothes hanging on racks, but instead they could be, you know, your e-commerce could be a wall that you rent in Sunlytoon or on a building, and you could just have these trigger images and people could go shopping, right? Like the whole graffiti wall even, right? Because doesn't matter, doesn't have to be a photo to trigger, could become a whole photo studio experience, right? That people could stand in front of. And then if you had the digital clothing, I mean, that could be the downtown photo studio, some graffitied wall in Paris, right? Where everybody, all the Instagrammers could go to try on the latest fashion, right? And so it removed the retail, because all you really needed was a flat surface, quasi, right? And we don't need to go into, yes, you can do curves and curved objects and all of that. Like, you know, that's all possible. But I'm just playing with the concept of anywhere can be your photo studio, your store, your retail. And then with 3D objects, right, you could literally rent the smallest little hole, have a flat table in the middle, and then point your phone at it, and then the virtual shoe would appear, and the virtual, you know, folded t-shirt, which could unfold in front of you, right? Like this store, which was 3D with stuff in it, could become flattened images and suddenly an amazing experience, right? You even could have the idea of, I thought about this octopus, you know, because I worked with Guopei, who's one of the top fashion designers in the world, the only one to be allowed in the Chambre Syndicale. And so when we look at couture, right, couture is very much like what's happening now in these 3D NFT objects, right? They're one-offs, they are resellable, right? You can own them. And those couture items, we digitized them in 3D and we created a dressing room, which was like a round area that you walked into. It had a screen, and then we used the Microsoft Kinect, and people could try on in 3D the couture gowns of Guopei's, you know, wedding collection, which they would never be able to ever try those on unless you're a top model and in your fashion show, right? So again, like giving access to this heritage and cultural relic of items that no one, unless you went to a museum, she did exhibitions, of course, right? And so I really loved this idea that, you know, we could have the advertising screens at street level that become virtual mirrors for these decentralized dressing rooms that could be all over the world in one click, right? Yeah. That everyone could walk up to the mirror and then try on the dress and click and buy it, right? Like, yeah. And all of a sudden your store is what? It's this screen, right? And it could be in an airport. It could be literally, boom, you could have it everywhere in the world in like a snap, right? And zero carbon footprint, right? So I'm really fascinated by that. And that just wanted to contextualize my experience for you to say that I think it also can become a physical store and an offline thing, and not just remaining in this little tiny screen in your phone, right? It will become bigger. And then as the advertising networks start to harness their screen networks, it totally can become the new way of shopping, you know, really. And like I said, just slap a big poster or work with a graffiti artist, and then boom, you've got your studio for people to go try in any country. And that's the beauty of this blending, I think, of the virtual and the physical, right? And so I just wanted to share that this future sort of vision, we can have a fashion show in Jardin de Tuileries, you know, with digital AX, digital AX, you know, collection, because we can geolocate the models in that position. We don't need anymore the Camera della Moda to pay them $100,000 to have your couture collection walk down the steps of the, you know, the famous La Scala. You know, we don't need to even pay permission to, you know, the Paris de Chambre, whatever it is that organizes, to have your collection shown in front of the Louvre, right? Like, we are totally screwing, in many ways, a big part of the system of, you know, paying for locations and being able to have these types of experiences. And even in COVID period, it's outside. So gathering could be allowed, right? Like, it's so interesting.
I want to actually
type of thing. Go ahead.
I wanted to jump in because, and you know what you're saying, I really believe that, you know, when we think about like digital stores of the future, it's all about the experience. I really think that that's going to be the heart of it. So to kind of touch on, and Mike, what you were saying before with these digital stores, when you think about, you know, like body tracking and even eye movement tracking, I'm sure that these, you know, digital fashion stores or any retail store, they'll kind of be dynamic, where it will be this thing, whether it's over like Wi-Fi networks and that's kind of registering your emotions, but you'll be able to tell, okay, if someone goes in there, maybe it's the graffiti wall like you described, and it can immediately kind of sense, okay, how is that person reacting to that store? Should those t-shirts or whatever really be placed over there? Or should it actually be, if it was like placed over here, you know, even through just like getting data from people's eyes and how they're kind of reacting to it. So I really think that that would be a big part of all of this, is kind of that it would be highly unique and personalized and really dynamic, not like when we say walk into like a Zara store today and it's everyone's seeing the same thing. It'll be something where every person is seeing something different that really speaks to them. And everything is exactly laid out. It's highly scientific. So yeah, it's really crazy and it's really exciting, but I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think that these digital stores, it's not going to be like what we think. There's going to be so many more like complexity layers, but that's exciting as well. So yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Since we're running out of time,
oh, sorry. I just love your idea of the personalization, because you definitely could have a camera, you know, the location of the person with the phone. You know, there's a lot of data to be seen. And I think, you know, right now, from what my side of the industry that I'm working in is with mobile operators and stuff, you know, they have all that data, right? They know who you are. And historically to date, they have not, they're just the pipe. They haven't been interested in bringing out services, and they're kind of old and don't know how to evolve. But I think going forward, as they lose their market share and they need to prove 5G, we could see potentially the operators partnering, for example, with your organization to then harness the data that they have about their customers and bring this very personalized service, which can be mutually profitable and win-win for everyone. For the customer gets this personalized service. You know, you have a partner that has 1.3 billion people that can push it to and data, and then they have a new revenue channel. I believe that it's an interesting time that people are waking up to new avenues and ways of working together.
Do you each want to take a minute to share a closing thought, since we're running out of time? Cecile, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, according to Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. So these were our descriptions of what has been conditioned to us, or what we thought are platforms that we have already experienced. But what we have to see as the future tries to stretch out, and as we have been fast forwarded, the transformations that we're supposed to see in 10 years has been fast forwarded by the pandemic for maybe 1 to 2 years. And of course, the future is now. So the medium and the platforms that we will be seeing might be something that we had never imagined. So it might be quite exciting to think that the use cases of these applications and the environment, the environment that Emma had created will be something like we never imagined before. Because basically, as you see in the 10 breakthroughs that has been listed recently, like for example, with MIT Technology Review, it listed something like, everything remote. And that it has been projected that, like for example, in the player creator economy and other virtual economies that we have, and also in these economies like Twitch, in live stream economies, why do people go there? Why do they want to be there when they could see a recorded show or something that's not live streamed there? It's because they wanted to have warmth. And so even this kind of economies will change how we try to project ourselves, and that in the end, the kind of attachment that they will have, there will be a blur. Like for example, the virtual YouTubers. What is the demarcation line between the real person behind the virtual YouTuber and actually what is real there? So in the future, do you think that the audience who are watching these virtual YouTubers will really mind about having something which is really personal, and the character, the avatar of the virtual YouTuber that they interact with? So that's why enter this, digital fashion and more uses, more value, and that's of the avatar and the other accessories that we have. So I read in one of the articles that Emma's company has, that about the valuation, Emma, and I was wondering about, the copyright law there, and how will people be able to do the valuation, because this is a non-fungible token. So then I realized that there were two things that you were considering. Number one, what is the emotional attachment that would be there, with the kind of art that you have? Just like what you have with music, or even a fungible visual art if you are to auction it. So of course, it's not so different from what we have um, with the other non-fungible tokens that's not virtual, because of course, we have number one, the emotional attachment. And if there is an emotional attachment, what's happening is that will this become viral? What is the factor that, attaches this emotional attachment to the feeling of the whole market as an ecosystem? And
Um,
then I understood that, yeah, I was wondering, like, you have a nyan cat sold for a very high amount, and other works of art that are sold there. And that's how I understand how your world, that the world that you created and the NFTs will be trying to interact. So it's like bringing something real into something virtual, because that is the future of our world. So yeah, I would maybe Emma, you have some thoughts on that?
Sure. Just to kind of wrap up and touch on, Cecile, what you said, and then also Anina, I think the first thing is, it's like the future is crazy, and we don't know exactly where it's going to go. But it's definitely exciting. There's definitely a lot to it, and I really do think that it's going to be this kind of emergence of all these different technologies coming together. And that's really where we're going to see the biggest innovation. It's when you see these like crossovers between two different random fields that maybe you didn't think kind of should be crossed over, or what was kind of the relevance or reference there. When this happens, this is where we see this bigger culmination of innovation and amazing stuff on that side. So yeah, I guess I'll wrap up with that. It's exciting, and there's a lot more to talk about. But the idea of personalization, of valuation, and then the combination of different emerging technologies, I think that's where we're headed, somewhere in that realm.
And I definitely want to follow up, and maybe another conversation, Emma, with about ESPA and how this ties everything that we've been talking about together. So.
Sure. Yeah, we'd love that. I mean, to briefly touch, ESPA is the esports platform that we're launching. But you're absolutely right. It ties together kind of every part of everything. But it's all about, how do you, as well as innovating and bringing technological advancement, how do you also ensure that you're kind of, I'd say in the simplest terms, how are you liberating and bringing more freedom to people's lives, so they can create value for themselves, they can be independent, they can monetize, and they can engage in an ecosystem that is sustainable, and it actually cares about where kind of their livelihoods or their careers are going. So that's, very much in terms of what we're setting the foundations for with ESPA.
So the last word goes to Anita, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, thank you. I mean, my whole thing is that I digitized myself in 2010 at the height of my youth. And the idea and the vision that I had was that I would be like, this 90-year-old lady with like wrinkles and like a little cool kind of grandma. And then I'd be there with my, hopefully not cane, but I'd be like pointing at my digital young self and be like, the best thing I ever did was digitize myself. She makes me so much money, and she's in all the top advertising campaigns, And so, I just really believe that, why is it that people wear wigs? Why do people wear fashion? Why do people, present themselves in a certain way in their bio? Because we feel a certain way inside. And then we are creating ourselves, right? And so the digital self, of course, my avatar has a little bit slimmer hips because, I'm more of a pear shape, and it always bothered me, She's got a little bit longer legs, etc. Her hair is flying and bigger, whatever. I guess that person that's embodied in my digital self is me. It is the me that takes a lot of effort to get to, And why can't my me be me on YouTube or with other people, as long as my me is in line philosophically and what she's saying and doing with what I believe too, So I think this is really the harmony. We have an etheric part of ourselves, and this part can have wings if you want it to, right? And that is not you. That's you. But, put the wings on is a lot of effort and, all of that stuff, and genetically and whatever. So I just think that this gives people the freedom to truly express a facet of their dynamic selves that may not get to show itself so often. And I think it is really needed in our society today to find our tribe.
Wonderful. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
I love you all. You're so awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.